Serious name dropping right there. Hey, Julie, I'd like to drop a few names to you really quick. You're live in studio, not just with myself, but also with Jaybird, Pops, and Camden, who's a banjo player for a string band. And Pops, yeah, for real. And Pops is a Korean War veteran. He's 82 years young, and Jaybird's just a straight-up Western redneck guy right here. And he's got something he'd like to ask you.
Oh, that's terrific.
Yeah.
Perfect guest to have me on with, because I also work with the National Veterans Memorial, so I appreciate your service. And I'm writing a book right now on PTSD. I'm writing for a book. I'm not the author. I'm writing for it on PTSD, and I work with the Veterans Memorial and honor those actors that served in the military.
We're a bunch of patriots, so thank you for doing that. That's great, man. We love our country up in here. We've got an American flag in the studio. We've got one outside, you know.
Absolutely.
Julie, hey, it's such a pleasure to talk to you. I've been a big fan of Unsolved Mysteries. I just want to let you know, like Kevin said, Pops is in the studio here. He is a John Wayne fanatic. Like, he's probably watched them all. I just want you to give a trivia question to Pops and see if he can answer it. Like, whatever, like something about his movie, him personally, or something.
This is kind of a hard one, so if I'm doing something too hard, he can let me know and I'll find something easier. But who dubbed his voice when Republic Pictures tried to make John Wayne a singing cowboy? And his name, what was his name when they tried to make him a singing cowboy? That's the first part of the question.
Wayne, Morrison was his last name.
Yes, Marion Morrison, but the character name that they tried to tag on to him, they tried to make him a singing cowboy, and it was really bad. It was bad. They didn't know to let John Wayne be John Wayne, so they tried to make him a singing cowboy. And his name in the film that they made him a singing cowboy in, do you remember his character's name?
Well, did another guy come and take his place?
No, they only did it once, and I'll give you a hint. My Uncle Glenn was his voice. He mocked up his voice, and my Uncle Glenn Strange, who was Sam the bartender on Gunsmoke, was his voice. And the character's name, he had two names. The first part was singing, and the last, can you remember, or did you see that movie? It's not one of his more popular ones.
No, I'm sorry.
I'm gonna take a stab.
It was Singin' Sandy. It was Singin' Sandy, and they had him playing a guitar and singing, and it was bad. It was horrible, and they just had to let John Wayne be John Wayne. And I wish you lived out here. I would have taken you to. I was a guest at what would have been his 109th birthday last Wednesday.
Oh, cool.
Out here in L.A.
You said the name
kids
was
were
bad.
there.
I was going to say Shaquille O'Neal bad. Like, was it Singing Shaq maybe?
Name wasn't bad. It was the sound was bad. You can't make John Wayne sing.
Yeah, right.
You can't make John Wayne do anything.
Hey, this is Camden speaking here, and I think I've got a question for you about John Wayne. If you'll let me ask it to you. Earlier, while we were doing a little bit of research, Pops trivially asked me or to look up what John Wayne's real name was, and I know she knows that, but while I was doing that research, I found that he died in a he didn't die, but he couldn't go on to be a football player, couldn't pursue his football scholarship because of a body surfing accident. Is that right?
You know, I don't know about that. I don't know about that.
Well, I was going to ask you if he was an avid body surfer. That seems like a strange thing for John Wayne to be into.
It does. I don't know that he was. I know that Jim Arness was. He was such a crazy surfer. He loved surfing so much that he would literally tear pages out of his script so that he could spend less time on the set of Gunsmoke and spend more time at the beach. So I don't know about John, though. I don't.
Maybe that's why John Wayne had an accident, because he was not an avid surfer. You know?
Maybe.
He maybe went out
they
one time. They
actually wanted him to do the role. They wanted John to be, Matt Dillon in Gunsmoke, and he didn't want to do that. He was making movies. He didn't want to go to television, but he recommended Jim Arness because he's another big guy. Those were big men.
Gunsmoke was a Saturday night necessity at my house when my young family was growing up.
Yeah, it was wonderful.
I'm sure you know who. I'm sure you know what his last movie was. John Wayne.
Jim Arness?
No, John Wayne.
Oh, John Wayne's last movie. John Wayne's last movie was The Shootist.
Yeah, right. That was it.
Yeah.
I've got that recorded, and I watch it once a month.
Yeah. You know, his granddaughter's favorite movie is The Quiet Man, and it wasn't a Western.
I love that, too, with Maureen O'Hare. That's a great one.
You'll love this. Guess who I still talk to on regularly? Rhonda Fleming.
Oh, really?
Remember Rhonda?
Yeah.
Yeah. She's just as beautiful now as she ever was.
Yeah.
What about Festus?
Yeah.
Festus on Gunsmoke.
He was the best. I loved him. Ken Curtis. He sang with the Sons of the Pioneers.
Yeah.
And my grandfather, Cactus Mac, was my grandfather, and he started the band that became the Sons of the Pioneers when he brought Leonard Sly into the group. And of course, you know Leonard Sly's his stage name.
The Sons of the Pioneers, I should know.
Right. Roy Rogers.
Roy Rogers, yeah.
Yeah. And so he sang with the Sons of the Pioneers, Ken did. So when I was little, I didn't like for him to do Festus because he was so handsome and so good looking. As a matter of fact, yesterday they ran an episode where he was dual character. He was Festus and he was this gorgeous gunslinger that he is just being his normal self. And of course the gunslinger died at the end, and but he was so good looking and just so suave and had such a beautiful voice and so debonair that when he did himself up like Festus, I didn't like that. I didn't like it. I wanted him to just be Ken Curtis.
Yeah.
Julie, I'd just like to ask if I could edit that bit you just said and use it as a description for myself when I'm describing myself on the Kevin Ollie show. Can I have your
like?
All right, cool. I didn't want to
Sure.
I didn't want to copy your voice outright without asking permission. So
okay.
The way you just described that was great.
Yeah.
Hey, Julie, it's Kevin again.
Uh-huh.
You and Pops and going back and forth with all this old-time Western stuff is awesome. It really is. And I know Camden's a big fan of that stuff too, but Pops mostly. I've been over to the house and seen Pop's book collection and seen him watching the black and white, recordings that he has and things like that. One of the things that I really wanted to talk to you about was something that is a little more common to me in my age. I'm a Generation Xer. I'm 40 years old, and I grew up watching Unsolved Mysteries all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, that was something that was on after dinner. When I was in college, I watched it on TV and reruns and things like that. I understand that you worked on that show as an investigative agent for, 10 years or something like that?
I did. It was absolutely wonderful. I auditioned on a Thursday and filmed on Friday. They hired me immediately.
Wow.
And it was, someone just kept telling me I was perfect for it, and I didn't go down there. And thank God she came to my house and said, I'm not leaving until you come with me. She was an operator, one of the 800 operators for the show. And I went along with her, and I got hired right then and there. And Robert Stack, of course, was an old cowboy star, so I knew him from when I was little. And then I got to work with him at his last job that he had there. It was a fabulous job. It was just fantastic. We did what John Walsh does for America's Most Wanted for Unsolved Mysteries. That's what I did with the crime section. Yeah. And I absolutely loved it, and I would be doing it today if I could. If I had my druthers, I'd be running cold cases because they didn't have DNA at the time. And we still had a 40% solve rate, even without DNA.
Wow, that's
so
amazing.
When I see my cases run, now, when I see some of those cases run, I worked on NBC, CBS. We were with NBC, then CBS, then Lifetime. And as a matter of fact, I moved in between, after NBC canceled the show And the reason they canceled it was for the salary demands of the last season of Seinfeld. And that's how we got canceled.
That's how you get beat out,
then,
Seinfeld.
I moved, and I moved, and I didn't leave any forwarding address or anything. I was just moved, and CBS picked it up. And one day my phone rang at my new house, and I answered. It was my producer, and she was so mad at me. She was yelling at me, "Where did you go? Why didn't you tell me? What's the matter with you?" And I said, "Well, I would have gotten to you eventually. I just figured the show was over, and I'm doing this now." And CBS had picked it up, and they wanted me back. And what's really funny is I said, "How did you find me?" Well, they put the people for Unsolved Mysteries on me, and they found the detectives, and they found me in an hour.
So
I didn't know whether to be flattered or freaked out, and I was a little of both. I'll tell you that.
Well, Julie, I'm probably ready to flatter you and freak you out all at once, because I'm going to say just come to Florida right here and let's start it all over. I mean, we got the recording studio here. We'll buy some cameras. We can put this together. I mean, I have DNA. I'm just saying, I don't know how that helps. I'm willing to give some samples.
I give the credit to the solves that we had, it was really thrilling, because law enforcement officers would send in their requests for us to help, and we would had to pick and choose really fast what to do. Like if there was an Amber Alert, it surpassed in urgency. That's what we went with, but. It was really thrilling to do that, and some of them would be skeptical and say, "We don't know what you can do. We've been trying for 5 years, and we don't know what you could do in an hour." But you know what it was? The power of the people, because I was really good at what I do, but I'm really not good at what I'm really not good at, and I wouldn't know some of these people when they showed the composite. If they rang my doorbell, I wouldn't recognize, because people change. And everybody sees things differently. So the solve rate comes from two things. The number one is the quality of the police work, and number two is just the power of the people. Because when we would run those composite drawings, we would get a hit and right away, and when we would always have a film crew down there, so in case that we did find something. But I would be shocked saying that person noticed that person was that person. I couldn't believe what people see. So everybody has their strengths, and I praise the power of the people that cared enough to watch, cared enough to really be diligent and hang on the line, and cared enough to call in. They were really great. The public was really great.
I practiced stuff like that in high school and college, and even at work nowadays. I doodle and I make drawings and stuff like that to pass the time when I'm maybe on a conference call or something. Everybody doodles. And anytime I ever tried to sketch somebody's face, it looks like Sloth from the Goonies. Every time. Unless it's an African American or an Oriental person, then they all look the same.
Mine's an upside down devil.
Everybody
with
looks.
horns.
I can't draw at all, so I don't. I respect all of that.
Yeah.
But it all came together just symbiotically on Fridays, and we filmed on Fridays. And whenever you see it says update, that's where to look for my group, and
cool.
That's what we did. And it was just having your thumb on that pulse. It was an absolute thrill. We'd start at 4:00 in the afternoon. We wouldn't end until 2:00 in the morning, and the law enforcement officers would be so stoked. They'd fly out from Michigan or wherever, and they're in LA, and they're all excited. And we used them as background, and we always did one show ahead. So, as the cops from the show that we were working on that night would be background for the next week's show, and they just loved it, and it was all just a wonderful, positive experience, and I wish it were still on today. We need it, and I wish it were still on.
Yeah, I'll tell you what.
I know it would still be popular. I know it would. Nobody isn't interested in that.
Well, Julie, I'm talking about popular. I'm a reproduction agent on Kevin's show. And I've been looking at my finances and stuff, and I kind of got to think that you're probably doing a little better off of that Unsolved Mysteries than I am as an agent on the show. Right?
Probably so.
Probably
so.
All right.
Julie,
just checking.
Yeah.
Is there anything in particular? And I don't want to bring back any